a very credible witness when it comes to being a witness for and on his own behalf during the presentation of the defense of this case, which he will be very credible about, and which these issues, which I'm very familiar that he's talked about and what it is that he's handed up to you, would and will be addressed so that he can debunk those things, especially those things that Mr. Williams, that would be Robert Williams, had talked about while he was being examined and cross-examined on the witness stand. Well, I think right at this point in time the court should know that what Mr. Smith proposes to do really represents a change in the strategy of the defense in terms of how the case was to be presented. Obviously, seeing all the cameras, seeing all of the line of witnesses, seeing the courtroom, how it's set up in terms of importance of this case, he's very concerned with not waiting for him to testify. He wanted, especially Mr. Williams, more interrogated and more closely examined for inconsistencies that he sees that may in fact be true, but were in fact strategy-wise planned to be covered on the direct examination of himself, Mr. Smith, during our portion of the case as he is a witness. To me, the strategy was agreed upon and was agreeable with Mr. Smith that I would do those things that I saw fit to attack Mr. Williams and his credibility, and especially the fact that he would and get him to acknowledge that he was in fact a liar, that he had previously, until given great latitude in a plea bargain and sentence agreement, had been either recalcitrant and or in denial of any participation, and that included any participation of Mr. Smith in either the conspiracy or any agreement or anything that related to what happened on Oak Drive or any of the other alleged 16 events that were to be made up of the conspiracy. So I submit to you, I'm familiar with these. I've met with Mr. Smith on a number of occasions. There was, I believe, and still believe, there was a general agreement of strategy. I think Mr. Smith's underestimating himself. I think the proper thing was done with regard to Mr. Williams in terms of getting him to acknowledge that he has been and is in fact a liar, should not be believed, and should not be looked upon by the jury as a credible witness, and that will be substantially our continued position and strategy in the case.
Can I add something to that?
Yes, sir. Why don't you stand up so I can hear you better, okay? Go ahead.
One thing that Mr. Williams do
No,
is
no. Behavior yesterday is such. No. 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 Out. Gotta go. Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Mr. McWilliams do provide, certain discovery. You do bring me certain discovery, and y'all have gave me a private investigator. And since I've been down here, the prosecution do well on investigating this case or whatever. And I just wanted us to do the same thing. Like I asked, can you go get their phone calls and see what they've been saying on the phone that might, help me in the case or whatever. And I explained that to him and the private investigator since I've been down here. And I have never ever received that. And certain questions that I wanted to be asked to Robert Williams, because when we cross-examined Don Diego Adams, I wanted the same questions asked. But how can we contradict? How can we show that they contradicting each other if we never even asked neither one of those? He's saying that Robert Williams is a liar. He's throwing that out there in the court. But how can you prove that he's a liar? You didn't prove nothing. You didn't contradict him on nothing. This man came and told his story and left. That's basically what happened yesterday.
Well, Mr. Smith, let me just say this to you. I'm not deciding this case at all. But what I heard your attorney, Mr. McWilliams, bring out from Mr. Williams when he testified was that there were a number of instances where he has claimed that he didn't do anything wrong. On several occasions when he came to court, he denied that he was guilty. And now he says he is guilty. That there were times when he initially cooperated with the police and gave a statement. And when he gave a statement to the police, he lied when he talked to the police the first time, particularly with regards to the shooting that occurred on March the 5th. And that he claimed that he never left the car. And then he changed his testimony as to where he was and what he was doing.
Right.
And so, I mean, when you say that he just got up and told a story and left, that's not what I heard.
Yes,
That's
sir.
not what the jury heard.
But when he got up there yesterday, he said that, you know, he held this gun to this lady or whatever. But during the course of his plea agreement or whatever, he told him that he made it seem like he's just an innocent guy and that he came to the Hilldale robbery for an execution phase. That's what he said previously. And the day that he decided to testify on it, he told him that Timothy Russell is the one held the gun up to the lady or whatever. And he said he just came over just on a humbug and just caught us in the act. But yesterday he got up there and said that we called him over there. Then he told them that I robbed the house with him and retrieved guns. But under oath, when they asked him, did you ever get a gun from any house robbing somebody with me, he said we asked for guns, but we never got one. So this is the type of stuff that I wanted to be out. And then the Eileen robbery, about some Eileen robbery on Schoolcraft. He told him I robbed the house on Eileen. But when they asked Don Diego Adams said that Robert Williams did that robbery with Timothy. But how can we prove if we never asked him none of that stuff? Just, he lying. He said that we never got no gun. This is what he said on the oath. But he came here yesterday and said something different and said that I did get one. And then another important thing that I wanted to come out is these guys came to my house and took my gun without my knowledge. Plenty of times they came to my house and took that false robbery case. I didn't know nothing about that case. I just know when I got here they were saying that some old man was robbed with a laser and they just so happened to come in my house and found the gun with a laser, which tied me to it, and I'm lost because I don't know everything that they doing out there or whatever when I'm not around or whatever. So they thinking that I had something to do with that, kind of found that I didn't. Not a war shooting happened, saying that I shot up some truck or whatever. We got these guys already saying that they took my gun from my house without my knowledge. So when this shooting happened, they could have took my gun that day. There's been plenty of times they took my gun without my knowledge. And then on top of that is they saying that I wanted them. This guy intervenes with a lot of his family members. He don't just hang. There's some stuff going on with him and his family members, brothers, cousins, and all that stuff. Why didn't he ask him where he get? They never asked him where did he get that 45 from. They never asked him that. And on a Washburn robbery, how do you got a gray and black 9mm Ruger and a 45 if I traded that 45 for that gray and black 9? Stuff like that I wanted to come out. How did you get that? How did you get that? How did you got both of these guns at the same time? If I traded this gun for this 9mm Ruger, how do you still got them together? That's the stuff that I wanted to come out or whatever. But I don't know if Mr. McWilliams read over the case or not. I thought he was.
Well, I think he has developed, a strategy for your defense in terms of going forward. It seems, as he has indicated, that you are going to get up and testify and contradict what is going on. Certainly there will be other witnesses who will testify, Mr. Adams who will testify. There's an opportunity for Mr. McWilliams to show that Mr. Adams has a different version than Mr. Williams had, all of which goes toward your defense. But there is a strategy that has to be put together. But let me say this to you, Mr. Smith. In terms of your request yesterday, the law requires that I have to do a number of things. And I'm going to hear argument in just a couple of minutes, legal argument. But you need to be aware of the fact that if you were to represent yourself, that you would not be able to make any claim that you had inadequate representation if you were to get convicted, because you were representing yourself. I want you to know that it is a very, very risky business to represent yourself. That your decision to represent yourself has to be unequivocal. In other words, you would have to decide without question, without any reservation whatsoever, that you wanted to go forward and you wanted to represent yourself. Representing yourself, recognizing that on the charge of armed robbery, the maximum penalty you could get if you got convicted is life in prison. Same with assault with intent to murder. Same with conspiracy to commit armed robbery. There are 3 counts for which you could possibly get life in prison by representing yourself. You need to understand that. And you have to make that decision on your own. You can't make that decision thinking that you were being forced into representing yourself or anything like that. That has to be entirely your choice. So do you understand what the circumstance is?
Yeah.
Is that what you want to do? Do you want to represent yourself the rest of the way here in this trial? Because it's not going to be one of those things where you can pop up and decide, oh, well, I want to ask a question here, or I want to ask a question of witnesses here, this witness, but not the next ones, or whatever. If you decide you're going to represent yourself, you're all in.
So will my lawyer be able to help me out? Well, not help me out, but like, will he be able to, I said if he was able to do those things for me and stuff, I don't have to do it if he was going to, read the stuff that I had given to him previously and now.
In terms of these questions? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. I just wanted for people to know, like, why didn't I participate in all these other robberies? I don't rob no old people. Why didn't I participate in these robberies? And I gave my lawyer a sheet of paper that was in my discovery where they say the live lineup was recorded. They say it was recorded on video, and it was saying like it is, and it said where it was located at, and I gave it to him and asked him, said, can we bring that here at trial or whatever? But I never ever seen the paper again, and he never ever went and got it. You know what I'm saying? And yesterday I wanted to say that I had told prosecution and you or whatever that I never text. I'm not the only Kevin that Timothy and Robert knew, and I wanted that question out there too because they found the old phone that was in Timothy's house under a number of 313-482-6229. That's what it says in my paperwork. And I told him that I never texted that was never my number, in which my parole, and when y'all asked me yesterday, y'all said, do you want to tell us the number? My parole agent came and confirmed that. She told him the numbers that I had, and it was not those numbers where it's saying bring him ass, or I'm about to go do these hammers. She never confirmed that I reported that number. That number was never in my name. That number was never in my possession or in my house. I don't know who number that was, but she confirmed yesterday that was my number. And I'm like, well, why is that being used as evidence against me? Because they said before trial, they told you the reason why they're using it is because my parole officer reported that was the number that I reported to them. And she came in here yesterday.
Mr. Smith, let me say this. The prosecution wanted to introduce certain phone numbers. I assume for some particular purpose that they thought was going to be helpful to their side of the case. There were 2 phone numbers, correct?
Yes.
2 phone numbers that they sought to introduce. There was an opportunity to stipulate to the fact that these were phone numbers that you had given at a particular point in time. You didn't want to agree to that because you had another position, you had another argument. You wouldn't stipulate to that. So now it came out that you were on parole and that this was the number that you gave to a parole officer when you were released from prison. Now I tried to minimize it. I tried to call the jury's attention to that and gave them an instruction to try to minimize that. But I say that only to indicate that you have certain issues where you're not thinking about other strategies that may be helpful to you, and it causes what can end up being more damaging information against you. But that's your choice. That's your choice. But what I want you to understand is, if you decide that you want to ask questions, if you want to be the one to ask the questions, you're all in for the rest of the trial. Your attorney may be able to give you some advice as to what can be done, but in terms of what the rules of evidence are and what's a permissible question and what's an impermissible question, you may have questions that you may want to ask that the prosecutor may object to, and I may sustain those objections, and you may be just kind of floundering around there. And there's that you can have Mr. McWilliams give you the legal advice as to what may need to happen, but you could be like the drowning man. I just want you to understand that. I'm not saying that you can't get in the water and swim if you want, but I think you need to know exactly what the perils are and exactly what you're up against if you choose to go forward representing yourself.
So, Your Honor, I would just like to indicate that, as the court well knows, and I really feel for Mr. Smith. I've been with him on a number of occasions, and I've talked to his mother late last night. I understand the pain and agony and the fear that he is going through. But there's been so many occasions in which, even today, Mr. Smith has spoken with the court on the record. Today he hasn't necessarily been sworn, but he has spoken on the record and to the court, in open court, heard by the prosecutor, and said things that I think are detrimental to him, and he doesn't even know better than that.
I'm not going to hold the courts up, Your Honor, but I just wanted to get a better understanding of what you said or whatever. And I'm going to note this for the record. Yes, I did have a 248-906-6863 number. Yes, I had a number like that, and at a point in time I had a 313-458-2311. Now, they said that it was 2 phone numbers that they wanted to produce at trial, which y'all gave me the opportunity. And yesterday I stated on the record I never denied those 2 numbers. What I told the court on the record is I never had a 313-482-6229 number, in which she never came and confirmed that I had that phone with the text messages. I don't know why they think it was me or whatever, but I did have the other 2 numbers, but I never had that number.
Okay. Well, and that's something that the jury may hear if you choose to testify.
But will he be able to, will we be able to see Robert Williams again if Mr. McWilliams proceed on?
So we find out, do we know where Mr. Is he available?
Today, no. He's not available. He went back, and it would take some time to get him here because of the arrangements, special arrangements.
Well, I need to, Mr. Smith, you can have a seat for just a second. Let me hear argument from the people on the self-representation issue. What's the people's position?
As the court knows, this is a defendant has the absolute right to represent oneself before trial begins, but after trial begins, that right changes from an absolute right to a qualified right. And the court's aware of the case law, but the qualified right requires an examination of certain factors, and the first factor that that examination has to be made is whether the request is clear and unequivocal. It's not that. It's not. He's not clearly and unequivocally requesting to represent himself. He's saying, if Mr. McWilliams does things that I want him to do, then he can represent me. If he doesn't, then I'll represent myself. So we're not even past the first hurdle yet on a clear and equivocal representation to represent myself. The second factor the court needs to determine is whether the representation, if allowed to be a self-representation, would be disruptive to the court. And the court knows from yesterday, watching the spectacle of the defendant as Mr. Williams was testifying, that there were outbursts in court, calling him a liar on repeated occasions. After he left the court, by his own admission, he said he's getting angry and losing control of his emotions. So I can only imagine when the parade of victims come in and testify that this individual was involved in a robbery, and then another co-defendant comes in and testifies that he was part of this conspiracy, that he might get angry again and might be disruptive. So The qualified right that he has should not be granted because he's not being clear and equivocal in his request. If the court were to find it was clear and equivocal, I would object because it would be disruptive to the proceedings themselves. And lastly, I would indicate that there is going to be a number of witnesses who testified who are elderly. And it would not be fair for the defendant in this case to cross-examine people who have been robbed in their own homes by a person who's involved in the conspiracy of those robbers. So for those reasons, I'd ask the court to deny the request.
Under Michigan law in Article 1, Section 13, and also MCL 763.1, the right of self-representation is secured under Michigan law, and that in the case of People versus Anderson, which is found at 398 Michigan 361, the 1976 Michigan Supreme Court decision. The Supreme Court held that the trial court must make 3 findings before granting a defendant's waiver request. First, the waiver request must be unequivocal. In this particular case, given the conversation and exchange this morning with Mr. Smith, the waiver request is not unequivocal. It is unequivocal and a conditional request. Second, the court must be satisfied that the waiver is knowing, intelligently, and voluntarily made. Certainly I have shared it with Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith has really indicated that he just wanted additional questions asked and had concerns about testimony from Mr. Robert Williams, as well as phone records and guns that may be tied to him or not tied to him. But it's all sort of wrapped up in terms of the equivocal comments about self-representation. So it's difficult for this court to know whether or not this is a knowing and intelligent and voluntary waiver. The court must, in fact, inform the defendant of the potential risks, and I think I have done that. And third, according to People versus Anderson, the court must be satisfied that the defendant will not disrupt, unduly inconvenience, or burden the court or the administration of the court's business. And in terms of what is being requested, particularly the notion of bringing back a particular witness, Mr. Williams, to ask additional questions once he has been thoroughly questioned, cross-examined, and the jury was given an opportunity for questions. The court takes guidance from the Supreme Court decision in People versus Rodney Williams, found at 470 Michigan 634, a Michigan Supreme Court decision from 2004, in which in the middle of the trial the defendant wanted to represent himself and reopen the case and go back and include other past evidence. The Michigan Supreme Court indicated that the trial court's decision not to allow that was certainly not an abuse of discretion to do so, and that going forward as counsel being self-representing rather than having counsel, it will be a disruption or inconvenience or burden to court. This is not a simple, straightforward case where it's carrying a concealed weapon and uttering a publishing type case, retail fraud type case. This is a case where there are literally hundreds of exhibits. There are witnesses who are former friends or associates of Mr. Smith. Certainly the behavior yesterday afternoon is reflective of the fact that the court certainly has a concern about disruption of conduct in this particular case. And I do think that to permit Mr. Smith in this equivocal circumstance to try to go forward at this point on his own, even with standby counsel Mr. McWilliams to advise him, would be incredibly burdensome on the court and the administration of the court's business, in addition to a replay of the kind of disruptive behavior that occurred yesterday. So, at this point, the court's position is that I am going to have Mr. Smith go forward with Mr. McWilliams. The motion for self-representation is denied. I will discuss with counsel later about Mr. Robert Williams as to whether or not he'll be recalled. All right? Okay?
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. We ready to proceed?
Keep on.
Okay, let's go.
All rise. Please come out and take your seats. You may be seated.
Good morning, folks. We had some legal issues we had to deal with. I apologize, but I believe we're ready to proceed at this time. Have another witness?
Yes. At this time, the people are ready to proceed, and they would call Mr. Charles Bryant.
Mr. Bryant, would you give your full name to my court reporter first, please?
Current testimony given in bad opinion for the court today will be the truth. Please have seats for the microphone, please.
Judge, may I proceed?
Please.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you tell me your name?
Charles Bryant.
And Mr. Bryant, are you familiar with the location 14181 Eileen Street?
Yes, I live there.
And how are you familiar with it?
I live there.
Okay. And how long have you lived there?
About 15 years.
Who do you live there with, if anyone?
Sabrina Session,
Who is she to you?
a girlfriend.
And do you live there with anyone else?
I have a son.
Okay. And how old is your son?
He's 25, but he's Down syndrome, so it's like he's more like a kid.
Okay. And
Thank you.
Judge, may I approach?
Yes.
Mr. Bryant, I'm going to hand you People's Proposed Exhibit number 423. Can you tell me what that is? Do you recognize that?
Yes.
Okay, is that a map?
Yes.
Do you recognize the area that that map depicts?
Yes.
In which area would that be?
This Eileen between Linden and Schoolcraft.
At this time, the people would move for admission of People's Proposed Exhibit number 423.
Without objection.
Thank
Correct.
you.
It'll be received.
Permission to publish it?
Yes.
Thank you. And the map that's there behind you, is that the map that you have there in your hand, Mr. Bryant?
Yes.
Okay, and that gray star, is that where your home is located?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
May I approach, Judge?
Yes.
Thank you.
The number will be,
Mr. Bryant, I'm handing you what's been marked as People's Proposed Exhibit number 225. Do you recognize that item?
Yes.
What is that?
That's my home.
And does that photograph fairly and accurately depict the way that your home looks both now and back on April the 25th of 2015?
It do.
At this time, the people would move for admission of Proposed Exhibit number 225.
no.
All right, it'll be received.
Permission to publish that
Yes.
as well. Now, Mr. Bryan, is that a photograph of your home behind you on that screen?
Yes.
You're the corner house?
Yes.
Okay. I want to take you back to April the 25th, 2015, around 9:30 p.m. Do you remember that date and time?
Yes, I do.
Now, did something occur out of the ordinary on that date?
Yes.
What happened?
I was robbed.
Now, let's start a little bit before you say you were robbed. Where were you just prior to being robbed?
I was cleaning out my basement, and I came out, brought some bottles of, empty bottles, pop bottles out to put in the car. And as I set the bottles down and went to the car and backed the car up by the door, and I was at the back door there.
And when you say you were at the back door, what back door are you talking about?
Of my Jeep.
The trunk area?
Yes.
Is a trunk on a Jeep kind of a hatchback, if you will?
Right.
So you were at the rear of your vehicle, is that correct?
Yes.
And what were you doing back there?
I had the hatch up, and I was making room to put the bottles in the car.
What happened next?
I just saw a glimpse go past me real fast. I wasn't paying any attention. So as I went to turn, when I turned, the guy jumped back like this, because I guess I scared him and he scared me. So, and I saw the gun. He said, "This is a stick up." I said, "Well, just take whatever you want. Just don't hurt me." So.
Let me stop you there. You had your right hand up kind of at waist level with your elbow bent, kind of with your pointer finger bent at the midway point. Is that accurate?
As I jumped around, I was just seeing there was somebody there, because I just glimpsed it in my eye. It was getting dark. So when I jumped around like this, when I seen it was somebody, I was ready to, I thought it was somebody playing at first. And he said, "It's a stick up."
And for the record, you turned over your right shoulder. Is that how you turned when you saw the individual?
Yes.
And how was he holding the gun? Can you demonstrate that for me?
They're straight at me.
As you're doing right now, with your right arm kind of extended at the mid-level line?
Yes.
Okay. And what happens then?
He had told me to turn around and back facing the car, and he would start going through my pockets with the gun on me. That's when I told him just take whatever you want. So he went in my front pocket and got some money. Then he got my wallet. Then he told me to take my coat off. And I took the coat off. The other guy, I had the house door was already open because I just came out. He ran into the house. And then he ordered me to go in the house behind him. And as soon as when you go in the side door, a couple of steps, and there's a kitchen. And he had me lay down on the kitchen floor. And
Well, let me stop you there. As you go inside of the home, where is this person that you see?
He was behind me.
And what was he doing?
Yeah, well, I assume he still had the gun on me. I wasn't looking behind. I was doing whatever he told me to do at that time.
Was the gun pointed at you before you turned around and started to walk inside the house?
Yes.
Which part of your body was the gun pointed at?
That's straight at me. Straight at me.
And you just pointed to your chest area?
Yes.
Now, where was your vehicle parked at that time?
Right by the side door.
And is that the side door that you entered through with this individual?
Yes.
Okay. And is it only one person that you observed?
It was two.
Okay. When does the second person come up to you?
The second person came up shortly after the first one, but he stood there, and then he turned. I guess he saw the door. He turned and went in the house. So as soon as the other person got through taking what I had on me, then he ordered me to come and go in the house.
So the second guy that walks up, he goes into the house first, right?
Yes.
And then you and the first individual follow behind second.
Yes.
Okay. Now once you're inside, you say you're laid down on the floor. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what is that first person doing at that time?
I think he was roaming around through the room, another room in downstairs there.
And do you know where the second person went?
You mean the one that went in first?
Yes.
That's the one I'm talking about. I think he had just went in the other room, because the kitchen was the first room we get to. When I got into the kitchen, the one that had the gun on me told me to lay down on the floor. So then the other one came back out of the room and asked me, was anybody else in the house? I said, yeah, my wife upstairs. So he turned and ran upstairs. The other guy still had the gun on me. So
where was the gun pointed?
I was laying facing on the floor, so I could just have my face to the side. I kept trying to see if I didn't want to. I said if I get a chance, I was going. He looked like I might have been able to handle him if I get a chance, but I was going to try to attack him. And so I looked. He was standing to my right, and he said, my phone went off, and he said, give me that phone. So I reached in my shirt pocket and gave him the phone. So when I gave him the phone, he saw my ring on. So he took my ring.
What kind of a ring was that?
My Sonic ring.
And it was on your finger at the time?
Yes.
And he takes that off of your finger himself?
Yes.
And what's running through your mind while this is happening?
I was just hoping and praying that he didn't shoot me, and they didn't shoot us. So I said to him again, I said, y'all take whatever you want, just don't kill us, you know. And he said, if you do as long as you do what I say, I'm not gonna kill you.
Could you tell what the other individual was doing while this was happening?
The other individual went upstairs already, I think, as soon as I...
Now, who was upstairs? Anyone other than your wife?
My son.
And how long are you downstairs for with that first individual, the one that had a gun on you?
I guess it could have been about 5 or 10 minutes.
And what happens then? Does anything happen where you leave that location that you're laying on the ground?
Well, the curtains by the window was open, so he closed the curtains, and he asked me where the light switch was, because the way the light switch is by the door, the refrigerator is kind of blocking it. So he reached and hit the light switch over the kitchen sink, and that didn't turn the light off. So he said, where the switch at? He looked like he was getting upset because the light didn't go off. And I said, the switch is right there by the door. And he said, where? And I said, behind the refrigerator. So he turned that switch off. And then he told me to get up and go upstairs. He laid me upstairs. By the time we got upstairs, he told me to lay on the floor up there.
Does he still have a gun at this time?
Yes.
Is it pointed at you still?
Yes.
Now, when you get upstairs, where does he take you?
As soon as I got to the top of the stairs, there's a couch sitting. There's a couch at the top of the stairs. He had me to lay down on the floor right by the couch.
Do you see anyone else when you get upstairs?
The other guy had Sabrina coming. He coming from the bathroom area.
Is Sabrina your girlfriend?
Yes.
And do you know her last name?
Session.
Okay. And the other individual is taking Miss Session from the bathroom to where?
Coming towards the door, the stairway. See, coming towards the door, and then he told her to lay down. She lay on the floor too.
So when you go upstairs of your home, is there like a living room area when you first get up the stairway?
Yes.
And is that where you and Miss Session were?
Yes.
Okay. And what does Miss Session do once she's in that room with you?
She just lay on the floor like he ordered her to.
And does that second individual have a gun?
Yes.
And what is he doing with that gun?
He had it pointed towards her. I think he was taking she had jewelry and stuff on her necklace and a ring.
Did you see those items get taken from her?
Yes.
Can you describe that?
He had her to pull it.
Let's start with the first item. You said there was a ring. Do you recall seeing that being taken?
I don't remember exactly how it happened. I just seen him make her come out this way, and then by that time the other guy told me to lay on the floor.
And when you say come out this way, you mean come to the living room area upstairs?
Yeah, from the bathroom door towards it. Yeah.
Now, what happens at that point? Once you guys are both on the ground?
At that point, he started asking what were the weapons, and then I told him.
Which person?
The one that had the gun on me. He said, "What's your weapon?" I say, "By the steps. The steps is down about. I guess it's about 10 or 12 steps down to get down there."
To get downstairs?
Yes.
And the guns were near the stairs? They
were right by the door on the bottom step against the wall.
And did that person do anything when you gave him that information?
He could easily, the other guy went down and
went downstairs?
Yes.
Okay.
So.
Go ahead.
So when he went downstairs, he asked about where's the rest of the gun. I said, well, that's all I got. He said, where's your handgun? And I said, I don't have a handgun. And he said, don't make me shoot you. Where's your handgun? I said, I don't have one. That's all the guns I got. And then he said, the other guy that was down there, I guess he had got the gun. I heard him tell the guy, so let's go. And then he turned and went downstairs too.
The guy that was upstairs with you, that had been dealing with you, he then goes downstairs once that second guy tells him, let's go.
Yes.
And you're describing for us what those individuals were saying. Is that how they were saying those things to you at the time?
Yes.
Yes? Was their voice the same as yours, or was it louder or softer?
It wasn't exactly soft, but it was, wasn't real loud either, like just demanding,
So it was demanding?
Yes.
Okay. Now, did you get a good look at the guns that the individuals had?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know the difference between like a long gun or a rifle and a handgun?
Yes.
Okay. What type of guns were these?
These had to be, look like the plastic ones, either 9 millimeters, look back this long.
And you're extending your hands out about a foot
They were
width?
the big 9 millimeters.
And did both of the individuals have those, or which individual?
Both of them.
Now, you had some guns at your house that they were asking for, right?
Yes.
What type of guns were those?
I had a old style 22 rifle and a 410 shotgun.
And were those items gone after those individuals left?
Yes, they took those.
Now, when the second guy says, let's go, and the first guy goes down after him, do you see those individuals again?
No, I never seen them again.
Do you hear them leave?
I heard them rush out the door, and I jumped up and ran down to try to see which way they went, but by the time I got to the door, they was out of sight.
And where is your son during this whole incident?
He went in the next room upstairs.
Did he ever come out of his room?
No, I think they had already, I guess they must have determined that he didn't know, he was a Down syndrome kid or something, because he didn't know what was going on other than he was just scared. So,
did you ever see any of the two individuals go into where your son was?
No.
You never did?
No.
Did you ever see your son come out of that room at any point?
No, not while they was there.
Okay. Now, can you describe the first individual that you encountered?
All I know that it seemed to be much smaller than me. You know, I mean, he might have been my height, but he wasn't as thick as I am.
Smaller in build?
Yeah.
Could you tell the age range of that first person that you encountered?
I would say the way he was moving, he had to be between 18 to 25 or 30.
Could you tell the race of that individual?
They was black.
And can you describe what he was wearing?
They had on all black, almost like a SWAT team type uniform. Their face was covered with masks, and then they had hoods over their heads.
So both were dressed in all black, just like you described?
Yes.
Could you tell the age range of that second person?
I think one of them was slightly older than the other one. I think the older one was the one. I'm not sure. I'm kind of mixed up on it, but
You're mixed up on which person is which, or
which one was the oldest and stuff, because I know the one, it seemed like the one that ran up on me first was probably the youngest one, because I think the other one seemed like he, when he said let's go, like he was the one that telling the other one what to do, or vice versa. I can't remember exactly, but it was more like if he give him an order, he was going to do what he said do, you know.
So it seemed to you like one of those individuals was in charge.
Yeah, because the one that had the gun on me, the one that went downstairs, he said, let's go. And when he said it the second time, the guy just turned and left.
Could you tell the race of the second individual?
They were both black.
Now, I know you said that they had masks on. Were you able to see any faces or anything like that?
No, I couldn't see anything. They were pretty well covered, even had gloves on.
What can you describe those gloves?
More or less plastic, like surgeon gloves at the hospital.
Like latex gloves, if you will?
Yes.
What color were those gloves? If you recall.
Can't recall exactly. I was a little nervous at the time.
Now, what items were taken from you?
Other than my money, my wallet.
How much money was in your wallet, if you recall?
I think I had a couple $100 fold in there, inside, hidden in there, and then I had some money in my front pocket.
And were both locations of money were both taken?
Yes.
And any other items other than those items?
They took my driving license and my Social Security card out of the wallet.
And the firearms as well?
Yes.
And your Masonic ring?
Yes.
Did you ever get any of those items back?
I got the wallet back.
Do you know where that was found? Was that at your house, or where was that?
A lady called me a couple of days later, said she had found it on Glendale between Greenfield and St. Mary's, I think it was.
And was this a police officer, this woman, or was this just a citizen?
Just a citizen. She lived it in the area. She said she found it on her way home from work when she got off the bus.
And what items were still in that wallet when you got it back?
Everything was still there except my driving license and Social Security card.
Now, after those individuals leave, what do you do?
I went to check with, to see was Chip all right, my son in the other room, and then, well, first I ran downstairs trying to see which way they was going, after I was sure they was out the door, because I didn't want them to turn back and start shooting at me. So I guess I must have hesitated a couple of seconds before I ran down.
Did you see anything when you ran down?
No.
Did you see anyone or any vehicles or anything like that?
No, I didn't get a chance to see anything.
You said you checked on your son. How was your son doing?
He was just scared. He was really scared.
Did you ever call the police?
Yes, we called the police shortly after.
And did they arrive?
Yes.
And did you tell them what you told us here today?
Yes.
And were you ever able to identify anybody as a perpetrator?
No.
Is Eileen Street in the city of Detroit?
Yes.
In the county of Wayne?
Yes.
I have no other questions.
Mr. McLean?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
How are you today?
Okay.
Good. Did you come here with anybody else today?
Yes, Sabrina.
Okay, all right. Well, I know this was a very traumatic event for you, was it not?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And how long would you say the total from the time that you were confronted by this person until the time that you sensed that they had exited your home, how long did that take?
I'd say between 15, 20 minutes, could have been 30 minutes.
Okay. And you did see guns, did you not?
Yes.
Okay. And are you familiar enough with guns to know if they are semi-automatic guns as opposed to revolvers?
Yes.
What would you describe they were?
These was like Glocks.
Okay.
Automatics.
All right. And you had enough time and mind enough to look at those guns carefully enough to be able to describe them as you just have. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any such guns at all in your house? Or on that day, did you?
No.
Okay. Have you had any gun like that in the past?
Yes.
Okay. You know, today in some modern use of such hardware, there are such things as laser beams on firearms. Are you familiar with that term?
Yes.
Okay. When you looked at the weapons that you have described, did you see any weapon that had a laser on it or attached to it?
Don't think so.
Okay. You know, a laser would have a light that would come out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you know that usually it's red. Did you ever see any such thing as that?
Not in real life. I've seen it on TV.
Okay. Did you, on the evening in question, did you ever see a red laser light on either one of the guns?
No, I did not.
Did you ever see or detect that either one of the guns of the perpetrator, that they were equipped with a laser?
It could have been, but I can't tell it. I mean, I didn't really just determine whether they had a laser. I was just,
Okay.
I know it was either a 9mm or a 45, so automatic.
You didn't see any attachments or
The
notice
big
any...
black was sort of like what the police carry now.
Okay.
Something similar to that.
Didn't see anything that you detected as a laser. Would you agree with me?
I didn't notice. You know, I can't say it wasn't. I can't say it was.
All
I just know it was a gun.
These persons, sir, did it seem to you that they were trying to hide their identities?
Oh, of course.
Okay. Were their identities hidden such that you could not see the shape or style of their hair?
They were.
Okay. Are you saying that they were wearing...
They were wearing masks.
Okay, but I'm now talking about on the head to hide the style of their hair.
They had hoodies on.
Okay, so are you saying that you could not tell what style or condition, if at all, of any hair on their head they had?
I couldn't tell that.
Okay. And when you say mask, could you describe it? Would it be a Halloween mask or identification of some person or object, or what are we talking about a mask?
More or less, just only thing was out was their eyes. Everything else was covered.
Okay. Was it something that was cloth, like a scarf on their face?
Yeah, it was cloth. It was cloth.
It was cloth. Do you remember what color cloth it was?
I believe it was black.
All right. And would that be the same with the pants, trousers, and or shirts or jackets?
Yes.
Okay. And would it be fair to say that you did not go to any lineup or shown any pictures of anyone that could have been possibly the perpetrators of this event?
No, never went to it.
No lineups and no photographs, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And as a matter of fact, the truth of the matter is, you are not in a position, because of the way things happen and the secret identification of the persons, you cannot positively say who or identify the persons who did this to you. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Nothing else.
Any questions by the troops? Mr. Bryant, thank you very much. You can step down, sir.
Thank you.
At this time, the people will call Miss Sabrina Session.
Sure.
This session, would you give your full name to my court reporter, if you would, please? Thank you. This session, would you raise your right hand for me? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please have a seat, if you would, and once you're comfortable, adjust the microphone in front of you so that we can all hear you, okay?
Okay.
May I proceed?
Please.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you tell me your name?
Sabrina Session.
This
And
session,
keep
would
your-
you bring the mic a little closer to you and keep your voice up so that we can all hear you, all right?
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Session, are you familiar with the location 14181 Eileen Street?
Yes.
And do you live there with your boyfriend, Mr. Charles Bryant,
Yes.
and your son as
Yes.
well?
Yes.
Now I'm going to show you back on that screen over there people's previously admitted Exhibit 225. Is that a photograph of your home?
Yes.
And is that photograph the way it looked back in March, or
Yes.
back in April of 2015?
Yes.
No, I want to take you back to April 25th, 2015, around 9:30 p.m. Do you recall that date?
Yes.
Did something occur out of the ordinary that brings you here today?
Yes.
What happened?
Well, at 9 o'clock, my alarm clock goes off. I get up and I go to work. So I was in the bathroom around 9:15 getting ready for work. And between 9:15 and 9:30, my bathroom door flies open. And there's this person standing there dressed in all black with a bandana around his face and a hoodie on, pointing a gun at me and asking me was I ready to die.
And how were you feeling when you heard that?
I can't even explain it to you. It was horrific. It was the worst feeling in the world. You know, it takes a minute before your brain realizes what's going on. You know, like, is this really happening? And this is my house. You know, nobody just walks up into your house with a gun and asks you, are you ready to die? That's just crazy.
Did you say anything back?
I told him no, I wasn't ready to die.
And what happens then?
Then he told me to take it off, and I'm like, take what off? He said, take your jewelry off. So I had 2 rings and a necklace on, and 1 ring was stuck, so I had to soap it off, and my necklace, he just ripped it off my neck.
So he didn't unhook it, he ripped it
He
from your
just
neck.
ripped it off my neck.
And was there any significance to the items that were taken from you?
Well, the ring that he took was a gift from my husband, or my significant other. He gave me the day my son was born, and the necklace was it was a 5-point star necklace.
And your son's 25 years old?
Yes,
So you've had that ring for a really long time?
a long time.
Or you had it for a long time?
Right.
And was that easy to get on and off?
No.
So can you describe how you got that off?
I had to soap it with soap and water and wiggle it off, you know, like work it off, and then it finally came off.
What happens then?
Then after he took my jewelry, then he asked me who else was upstairs, and I told him my son was in the room watching television. So he opened the door and he saw him there, and then he came back and he grabbed me by my shirt and pulled me into the living room, and he told me to get on the floor.
And you just grabbed for the front area of your shirt?
Right.
With your hands?
Right.
Is that how he grabbed you that day?
Right.
And where do you go with him?
Into the upstairs living room.
And do you see anyone else other than you and this individual who approached you in your bathroom?
Eventually, another guy came up with Charles.
But initially, are you there just you and this
Just-
other individual?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And is that a yes?
Yes.
And what does he do at that point?
He told me to lay down on the floor, which I did, and he had a gun that was pointed like my back area, and that was it. And I just laid there, and then you can hear Charles and the other guy coming up the steps.
Now, the gun that you said this individual had, when was the first time that you saw that?
In the bathroom.
And tell me about that.
He just came after the bathroom door flung open. He came and he was pointing it like this, and I was standing at the sink, and I was just finishing up, and then because he flung the door open, so it kind of like startled me, and I kind of backed up, and when I backed up I was facing him, and then he walked in and he put the gun here to my chest, and he asked me was I ready to die.
Now, for the record, you had your right arm extended
Mhm.
in front of you. Is that a
Mhm.
yes?
Yes.
At about shoulder level.
Right.
And you had your pointer finger and your thumb extended out.
Mhm. Right.
Kind of in the shape of a gun.
Right. Yes.
And do you know the difference between a handgun or a rifle or a long gun?
Yes.
And what type of gun was that?
It was, looked like a police issue gun, like a...
So a handgun?
Right, mm-hmm.
And you get into the... When you go... Excuse me, strike that. When you're taken into the living room area, do you know where the gun is at that point?
It was still on me.
Pointed where?
Facing me. Pointed at me.
And you're gesturing to the center of your chest?
Right, mm-hmm.
Now, when you're on the ground, is the gun still pointed at you?
Well, when I got to the ground, I just like closed my eyes because I was just praying and waiting for the impact because I knew it was over.
And what do you mean by you knew it was over?
I just knew we were going to get shot.
That's what you thought was going to happen?
That's what I thought, yes.
You said that after some time, you see a second individual and Mr. Bryant come upstairs.
Yes.
How long after you're on the ground does that happen?
Maybe like less than 5 minutes.
And what happened?
He brings Charles upstairs and he tells Charles to get down on the ground. Charles gets down on the ground and he keeps telling him, he said, where are the guns? He just kept repeating, where are the guns? And he told him, he said, I don't have any more guns. I don't have any guns. And he said to him that, do you want to see your family is going to get killed if you don't give up the guns? And so he said, I don't have any guns. And then he said, the only thing that I have is a shotgun that was on the stairs, and it was some type of old gun he had. I don't even know if it was working, but he had it on the stairs. And so the guy went downstairs, and then afterwards the other guy followed behind him.
Now, when you say the guy went downstairs, was that the guy that you were dealing with, or the guy that came up with...
No, the one that came up with Charles.
And then the guy that you were dealing with went down second?
Followed behind him.
Now, was anything else said to you before that second individual goes downstairs?
No.
Anything else said to Mr. Bryant?
No.
And when the second individual goes downstairs, do you know what happens then?
After they go downstairs, I really don't know what happened. Charles said, just wait a minute, just wait. And so we waited on the floor a little while longer, and then he said that he believed that they're gone.
And did you ever see those individuals again that evening?
No.
Did you ever see those individuals again ever, to your knowledge?
No.
Did you check on your son after the incident?
Well, my son came out of the room, and he was just standing there looking at him, and then they told him to go back, and he went back into the room.
At what point was that?
This is when he had grabbed me and told me to get on the floor.
And how many of the individuals are upstairs with you at that point?
It was me, my son, and this person.
Can you describe that person that you were dealing with?
He was dressed in all black shoes, black gym shoes, black pants, black hoodie, a bandana across. Only thing that was showing was his eyes. And he had on blue surgical gloves.
Could you tell the race of that individual?
Black. Could
you tell the approximate age?
I would say between 19, 25.
Could you tell how tall that person was?
He was my height.
How tall are you?
5'4".
5'4"?
5, yeah.
And could you tell what build that person?
He was slender build.
Did you get a good enough look at the second individual to describe him, the one that was with Mr. Bryant?
No, I really didn't get a good look at him.
Could you tell what type of clothing he was wearing?
They're both basically dressed the same.
Were you able to see either of their faces?
No.
How come?
They had on hoodies and bandanas.
Both did?
Well, the one that I did. The second one, I really didn't see too much of him, because by the time they came up, I was already on the floor and facing the wall.
What items were taken from you?
My 2 rings, a necklace, and an iPad.
Where was the iPad taken from, if you know?
It was on a sofa table plugged into the wall.
Did you see which individual took that item?
The guy that had Charles took it as he went down the stairs to get the gun.
Grabbed it on his way down?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
After the 2 individuals leave, do you or Mr. Bryant call the police?
Yes.
Which one?
Charles.
And do they arrive?
Yes.
And do you tell them what you told us today?
Yes.
Were you ever able to identify any perpetrators?
No.
Did you get a good look at anyone to see any faces to be able to identify anyone?
No.
May I have just one moment, Judge?
Yes.
Thank you. At any point was a gun, if you know, pointed at your son?
No.
You don't know, or it was
no,
not?
No, it was not.
No other questions?
All right. Mr. McWilliams.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Good morning, Ms. Sessions.
Good morning.
How long would you say that these persons were in the house from when you sensed that they were there until you sensed that they had left?
Well, I really don't know how long they were downstairs, but the one that was upstairs with me was there between maybe from 9:30 until like 10 o'clock.
So approximately going on a half hour?
Yes.
All right. You mentioned the dimensions of the perpetrator who was with you, and you've said a designated height. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
How is it that you were able to approximate the height of 5'4" of one of the persons?
Because I was looking dead at him in his eyes. He and I were about the same height.
I take it that the covers on the person who was dealing with you were such that you were not able to make an identification to know other description than what you have given of the person who was dealing with you.
Correct.
Okay. And would you agree with me that you could not positively identify anyone who had done what they did to you?
Correct.
Okay. And so would it be correct you did not see any hairstyle such as braids
No.
or fades or anything like that with regard to a hairstyle of the person?
No.
Was that because the person that was dealing with you had a hat on, or was it a hoodie?
He had a hoodie on.
Okay. Did it appear that also additionally he had a hat on?
I don't remember
Okay.
a hat.
Now you mentioned a bandana.
Mhm.
Is that like like a handkerchief folded into a triangle and then tied in the back?
Right.
Just like that?
Just like that.
Okay. And a bandana would come down to a point down at the throat or neck area?
Well, it was covered up. It was just here, and then it like tucked under.
Okay.
When I say here, you're talking about like from the bridge of the
From the right, yes, from the bridge of the nose.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. You know what a turtleneck sweater would be.
Yes.
Would it have, and if you took a turtleneck sweater and pulled it all the way up,
No.
rather than a bandana?
No, this was a bandana.
Okay. So you saw no braids upon the person, isn't that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And with regard to the firearm that you saw, are you familiar with firearms for some reason or fashion?
I am now.
Okay. And have you ever heard the term a laser beam on a firearm?
A laser beam?
Yes, you know what a laser is. That's one of those pointers. You push a button, the
Mhm.
light comes on.
Mhm.
Did you see or detect any such thing?
No.
Okay. Were you shown any photographs of possible persons to try and identify?
No.
And did you go to any live lineup to look at anyone?
No.
And the persons who were there, or at least one of the persons, appeared to you to have some type of gloves on?
Yes.
Would that be like winter gloves?
No.
What were they?
They were hospital surgical gloves.
Okay. Kind of like plastic gloves.
Latex gloves.
Latex, okay. All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Nothing else.
Any questions by the jurors? Ms. Session, thank you very much. You may step down, ma'am.
Thank
You may
you.
be excused, or you may remain if you so choose.
Judge, may I just have one moment?
Yeah.
Judge, this time the people who called Police Officer Cooper.
All right. Officer Cooper, would you give your full name to my court reporter, if you would, please?
No, yeah. Y-A-S. M-I-N.
Officer Cooper, would you raise your right hand for me? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please have a seat. Adjust the microphone in front of you, if you would, please.
May I proceed?
Yes.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you tell me your name?
Yasmin Cooper,
And how are you employed?
Detroit Police Department.
How long have you been with the Detroit Police Department?
16 years.
And where are you currently assigned?
2nd Precinct.
Where were you assigned back on April 25th, 2015?
I believe I was still assigned at the 2nd Precinct. I'm not for sure what shift.
Back on April 25th, 2015, at approximately 9:30 p.m., did you receive a police run
Yes.
to the location 14181 Eileen Street?
Yes.
And what was the nature of that police run?
It was a robbery.
And did you go to that location?
Yes.
And what happened when you arrived?
I talked to a gentleman who said that someone attempted to rob him outside of his home.
Someone had what?
Robbed him out of his outside of his home.
How did he appear to you at that time?
I don't recall.
Were you working alone that day, or were you with a partner?
No, I was with a partner,
What's your partner's name?
Rhonda Moore.
And did you speak to anyone else other than the male that you encountered?
I spoke to a young lady too.
And how did she appear to you when you saw her?
Very upset.
And what did she tell you?
She said she was upstairs in the bathroom of the home, and when she was either entering or coming out, someone grabbed her and told her to get on the floor.
Did she give you a description of those individuals?
Other than they were black males, but
Did the male give you a description?
yes.
What description did he give you?
He said they were about 5'5", 5'6". He said, but they were wearing all black with black hoods and black bandanas and black gloves.
Did you speak with anyone else while you were there other than the male that you encountered and the female that you encountered?
No.
Did either of those individuals tell you what items had been taken from them?
Yes.
And what type of items were taken from them, if you recall?
I know jewelry and a cell phone.
Okay. Do you recall if there were any firearms taken?
Yes. I think it was 2. One was a rifle, and I'm not for sure what the other one was.
Did you encounter anyone while you were at that home that matched the description of the individuals that had perpetrated this crime?
No.
Did you do anything with that information when you received it?
I made a report.
No other questions.
Mr. Mr. McWilliams?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Good morning, officer.
Good morning.
Having received that run, did you or were you required to prepare a police report?
Yes, I was.
And did you bring that with you today?
Yes.
And before coming today, did you review it? I mean, it's been over a year ago.
Yes.
Okay, so you're familiar with it, correct?
Yes.
And in the report that you wrote, was there any description of a person who may have been described as the perpetrator of Miss Sessions therein?
I don't know. What do you mean?
Okay. You know there were a man and a woman
Yes.
and a child in the house for the run, correct?
I didn't know about the child. I only saw the man and the woman.
Okay. Did you get a description of the perpetrator that appeared to you to have dealt with the woman and write it down and is it in your report?
Yes, but I didn't get an isolated description of who dealt with her. I just got 2 black males and, you know, description in that matter.
Did you get? Did you take down the height of any of either of the 2 perpetrators?
Yes.
Okay, and what were those heights?
Between 5'5" and 5'6".
5 feet 5 inches
Mm-hmm.
and 5 foot 6 inches. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And was that the extent of the identification that you received from the 2 persons?
Yes. The gentleman said that he thought that their ages were between 19 and 25.
All right. Anything else?
No.
Okay. I want to ask you whether or not what you took down, to the best of your knowledge and recollection, whether or not there was any investigation by you that led to the identification of a person by the name of Kevin Smith as either one of the perpetrators of the event over there on Eileen.
No, there wasn't.
Thank you very much.
Anything for the officer?
No.
Members of the jury? Okay. Officer, thank you. You may be excused.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. The people would call Bertha Crosley.
All right.
Raise your right hand. You promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. You want to step up here?
All right, Ms. Crosley, we're going to help you, okay?
They say that's okay. You got it? Okay. May I, Your Honor?
Go ahead, Mr. Cahill, please.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Bertha Louise Crossley.
And how old are you, Miss Crosley?
I'm 89 years old.
And where do you live?
I live at 16885 LaSalle Avenue in Detroit.
Now, I'm going to bring your attention to February 11th, 2015. Do you remember that date, Miss Crosley?
Yes.
Now, where were you at about 10 or 10:15 of that evening?
In my driving into my driveway
Where were you driving from?
from the sorority house at 2657 West Grand Boulevard.
Now, when you arrived at your house, can you describe to the jury what happened?
Well, my remote control was not operating, and so I had to open my door and go into the house to open the garage door. I put my key in the outer door and unlocked it, and a car driving rather fast drove up and parked quickly by the fire plug, which was on the same side as my house. So I glanced to see who it was, and two young men jumped out of the one on the driver's side, the other in the back seat on the right side.
What happened then?
Well, I thought they were running next door because the snow was piled high, and they ran on top of that snow. And the next thing I knew, when I started to put the key in the inner door lock, they were up behind me.
And what happened once they got up behind you, Ms. Crosby?
Well, one said, "This is a robbery." And I said, "What kind of robbery?" And he said, "A robbery." And as I glanced, he pulled looked like a black little gun and pushed it in my back and said, "Keep opening the door, we're going in with you."
And what was the other person doing at the time that one person put that gun in your back?
He was just standing right behind him.
And so did you open the door for them?
Yes.
And what happened after you opened the door?
We stepped inside, and the one that was doing the talking said, "Who else is in the house?" So at that point I realized it was really a robbery, and I just started praying out loud, asking God to have mercy on these young men. And the one said, "Take us to your room."
And did you?
Yes, my room was upstairs. So when we got upstairs to my room, the one doing the talking said, "Lay down on the floor."
And what did you do?
Well, I had a little hassock at the foot of my bed, so I just knelt on my knees and laid my hands and head on the hassock. And the one doing the talking said, "Where's your jewelry?"
What did he say?
So I said, "It's on the dresser."
And what happened after that?
Then they started rambling on the dresser top, and one opened the dresser drawer. There are 3 drawers across, and he said, "She lied, the jewelry's in here." So then the one snatched a pillowcase off of my bed and started putting the jewelry in the pillowcase that they wanted, dropping it on the other on the floor.
And what were you doing at the time where they were putting the jewelry into that
I was
pillowcase?
still just kneeling there. I tried to peek, but I couldn't. I was afraid to raise up.
And what happened after they put the jewelry into the pillowcase?
Then he said, "Get up, we're going downstairs." So I stood up, and one came over, and I was wearing my raincoat, and he took the keys, said, I don't want your car, just give me the keys."
And so what happened after he took those keys from you?
Then we went back downstairs, and at the front door I have a little lavatory, and he said, "Go in there and lock the door."
He lost you in the lavatory?
No, well, I was a little slow closing the door, so he slammed the door. And he said, we didn't hurt you because you did what we told you to do.
And what happened after you went into the lavatory and he said
well, after I opened the door, after I heard them running away to look, and they jumped in the car and drove away.
What happened after they jumped in the car and drove away?
I called my neighbor next door. He's a gentleman, Mr. Gray, and told him that I had been robbed at gunpoint. And he came over.
Now, did you or Mr. Gray ever call the police about what happened?
Mr. Gray called.
And did the police ever come that night?
Yes, they came right away.
And did you describe to them what just happened?
Yes.
Now, I'd like to ask you some follow-up questions about what you just described, Ms. Crosley, if I can. These people who, there's two of them, you said?
Yes, that came in.
Now, did you recognize either of them?
No, I didn't.
And how are they dressed, Ms. Crosley?
In dark clothing, like they had a hoodie on the jacket and had a black mask on the face and gloves.
And the mask, did it allow you to see any part of their face?
No, I couldn't see any part.
Were you able to tell whether they were the race of the people who were there that night?
Yes, they appeared to be black.
Now, how old would you say they were, if you could estimate?
In the early 20s, probably 22, 3.
And you said that they're wearing gloves. Could you describe those if you remember?
It's sort of black with the knit.
And what was their build? Like were they thin or heavy or in between, or how would you describe that?
The one doing the talking appeared to be the taller of the two, about 5'9", and I would say sort of thin.
Right. And because they were wearing masks, you wouldn't be able to identify them after seeing them that night, would you?
I don't think so.
Now, were they both holding guns or just one?
No, just one.
And that was the person doing most of the talking, is
yes.
that right? And what exactly did they take from you that night?
I had 4 costume watches, and I have counted like 20 sets of necklaces and earrings. And then my class ring from Wayne State University, 1971.
From 1971. And about how long would you say that this all lasted for, from the time that they put the gun into your back till the time they left your house?
A maximum of 15 minutes. I'd say between 10 and 15 minutes.
Now, Ms. Crosley, I'd like you to look at this item that I'm about to place in your hands. It's People's Proposed Exhibit number 222.
Thank you.
Can you just look at this, please?
Okay.
And after you're done, just look back up at me. Do you recognize what that is?
That's my house.
And that's a fair and accurate depiction of your house, is that
Yes,
right?
yes.
The people would move to admit this as their next exhibit, Your Honor. Exhibit number 222.
Without objection.
All right, 222 will be received.
May we publish it to the jury?
Yes.
And that image right behind you, Ms. Crosley, that's the picture that you just saw, is that correct?
Yes.
And when you talked about them putting the gun in your back, was it right before that red door to the right of the house?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to approach with another exhibit pre-marked as People's Proposed Exhibit number 422, if I may.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can you please look at that? And after you've had a chance to look at it, just please look back up at me.
Okay.
Do you recognize what that is?
Yes,
What is that?
that's a map of the area where I live.
And that's a fair and accurate depiction of the area which you live?
Yes.
I move to admit this as the next exhibit, Your Honor. Exhibit number 422.
Without objection.
422 will be received as well.
May we publish it to the jury?
Yes.
And is that the map that you just saw a moment ago?
Yes.
And the star right there, that's where you live?
Yes.
I have nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you very much.
Mr. McWilliams.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Claus.
Good morning.
How are you feeling? Okay?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you for coming down here today. And you graduated from Wayne State University in 1971.
Yes.
It was a pretty good year to graduate from. Wayne State University.
Yes.
Excellent university.
It is.
It is. Well, this was an unfortunate event for you and something you did not expect there on February 11, 2015. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Would it also be fair to say that you could not positively identify either one of the persons who would be described as perpetrators against you on the evening in question? Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. And you could not tell because how they were dressed, what the hairstyle, or if they had any hair at all on their heads. Isn't that correct?
That's true.
Okay. And they were wearing clothing which also was appeared to be an attempt to hide their identity. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. They had guns, or at least one person had a firearm. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you know the difference between a handgun and a rifle?
Yes.
Okay, would you describe the gun that you saw as a handgun?
It was a short, black.
Do you know the difference between revolvers and semi-automatic guns?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know the difference between automatic and semi-automatic guns?
Yes.
Okay. So would you describe this gun as a semi-automatic pistol?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Now you said that the person had gloves on. Is that correct?
Yes.
Would you agree with me that what you've described are gloves that a person would wear in the wintertime as opposed to what a doctor might wear in examining a patient?
Yes.
Okay. And did one or both of the persons have gloves on?
Yes.
Okay. And were they knit gloves? Both of them knit gloves?
I would say partial knit because there was some knit at the top.
Okay. Like up at the wrists?
Yes.
And did you see maybe down below in the fingers it might have been different than knit?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And now the build and height of the persons, did you do the best you could to adequately describe, for example, the height of the person who was doing the talking?
Yes.
And did
about
you describe that person as approximately being 5'9" tall?
Yes.
How did you make that decision?
Well, I'm 5'2", and my husband was 5'8", so he appeared to be a little bit taller than my husband was.
I see. Okay, thank you. And apparently your garage door opener was not working, correct?
Right.
So you had to go inside the house and then open up the door and then drive. You were prepared to drive your vehicle in. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then at the point in time that you were on your porch, is that correct?
Yes.
And you were trying to get into your main door, you were then approached by persons.
Yes.
Okay. And did they appear to come from a vehicle from across the street?
No, on the same side
On
of
the
my
same
street.
side of the street. And apparently there was a fire hydrant
Yes.
by your house?
Yes.
Is that fire hydrant right out in front of your house?
Yes, to the side.
Okay. Did you notice anything unusual about the gun? Was there a light on the gun?
No, I didn't see a light.
Do you know that sometimes there are lights on guns? Did you know that in a modern,
Yes.
some modern guns? Did you ever hear of a laser pointer being on a light?
Laser.
Yes, ma'am. You know what a laser is? It's
Yes.
a pointer. And
Yes.
did you know they're putting them on guns now so that you can turn on the laser and now you know where the gun is being pointed?
Mm.
Did you know anything about that?
No.
Okay. You didn't see any red light that pointed either at you coming off that gun?
No.
Okay. And for sure, you were not shown any photographs, were you not, of possible persons who did this to you?
No.
And you were not taken down to the police station or any place else to be shown a lineup of persons who might have done this to you. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Gail, anything?
No, Your Honor.
Anything for the jurors? Thank you. Ms. Crossley, thank you very much. Wait, hold on a second. We'll
Okay.
help you a little bit here, okay?
Thank you.
Watch your step. Right. Mr. Cahill, you have another witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The people who call Officer Townsend, please. Officer Stephen Townsend. Yeah, where's Kevin?
Officer Townsend, would you give your full name to my court reporter, if you would, please?
Stephen Townsend, with a V, S-T-E-V-E-N.
Thank you, sir. Officer, would you raise your right hand for me, if you would, please? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, self you got?
Yes.
Please have a seat. Adjust the mic in front of you, please.
Great. May I, Your Honor?
Please.
Great, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Police Officer Stephen Townsend, Detroit Police.
And how long have you been working with Detroit Police Department for now, sir?
8 years.
And just very briefly, your duties and responsibility as a Detroit police officer?
Patrol the streets, enforce crime.
Now, were you on duty on February 11th, 2015?
Yes.
And where were you at about 10:15, 10:20 that evening?
We responded to Home Invasion 1 call at on LaSalle Street.
And would that be would that be at 16885 LaSalle Street?
Or is it 16855?
Oh, my apologies. Yes,
16855 LaSalle. Yes.
Excellent. And having received that radio call, did you go over to that location?
Yes.
And can you describe what you saw when you arrived there?
Initially, we were met by the victim, who was quite shaken up, elderly woman.
And when you say that she was shaken up, what led you to that conclusion?
She stated that she was just a victim of a home invasion, forced back into her house, and her voice was quivering, and she was shaken up.
Now, did you have an opportunity to go into the house and look about?
Yes.
And could you describe what you saw when you entered into that house?
we were taken into the bedroom, which is up a flight of stairs, and the bedroom appeared to have been ransacked.
What makes you say that appeared to look ransacked? Can you describe it?
It was just out of order. Things were out of order. Drawers were open and things were knocked about.
And after you saw the inside of the house, what did you do?
Well, we got the victim's story and we made notifications over police radio of possible suspects, vehicle description, last known direction of travel.
Now, when you say possible suspects, you had nobody in mind. You had no name, did you?
No, we were described two masked men wearing masks and gloves on their hands.
And just so we can be clear, can you display exhibit number 422, what's previously been admitted as exhibit 422? Can you look behind you, sir? Is that the location that you responded to that night?
Yes.
I have nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you very much.
All right. Mr. Williams?
I do, Your Honor. Thank you. Morning, sir.
Good morning.
LaSalle Street, is it sometimes known as LaSalle Street or Boulevard?
I guess Boulevard.
Okay.
Yeah.
City of Detroit.
Yes.
And you've been an officer for 8 years?
Yes, sir.
Is that a regular precinct and area that you're familiar with?
From the 10th precinct. This is actually, we're responding to this run. It's in the 12th precinct.
I see. Okay. So you received the run over there?
Yes.
Okay. And you spent a little time over there seeing what was going on?
Yes.
And you interviewed the victim in the case. Is that correct?
Correct.
And at any time, would you say that you were actually making an investigation of a crime scene?
Well, yes.
Okay. And in the course of that investigation, did you find anything which led or gave you reason to conclude that a person by the name of Kevin Smith had anything to do as the perpetrator at 16885 LaSalle?
No.
Thank you very much.
Anything, Mr. Cato?
No, Your Honor.
Any questions by the jurors? Officer Townsend, thanks very much. You may be excused, sir.
All right.
Who's the next witness likely to be?
He will be Mr. Stewart,
Okay.
Mr. MacArthur Stewart.
So we don't interrupt that testimony. Let's take 10 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. Take 10 minutes.
Yes, Ron. All rise.